Hello BookTube, welcome to Lizzie Faye Loves Books. Today's Saturday Shelfie is going to be my middle grade books. You know, there may be a couple of books that you would consider YA in here, but for the most part it's middle grade books. And I'm going to take you through this stack and the stack behind, which will be authors A through E. This is one of the shelving units in my utility room, and this entire shelf is double stacked with middle grade books. Most of my middle grade series are on a different shelf. I showed those last week. I do have a few trilogies in here and maybe a few books that are part of series, but maybe I don't have the whole series or I only have a few. So these are my miscellaneous middle grade books. I have Newbery winners on another shelf around in our home office. So that is why this first book by Avi is Crispin at the Edge of the World, which is book 2, because the first book, Crispin the Cross of Lead, is a Newbery winner, so I have it on my Newbery shelf. And this is one of the books that I'm hoping to read in May, for middle grade May. Here's one I already read for middle grade May. It's Only the Names Remain, The Cherokees and the Trail of Tears by Alex W. Beeler. This is a nonfiction book about the Cherokee Nation, and it's mostly about their lives leading up to the Trail of Tears. Here's one I have not read. I think this is a pretty old one. This is Bonanza Girl by Patricia Beatty. I have read this one and I enjoyed it. This is Little Blog on the Prairie by Kathleen David Bell. This is one Katie wanted to buy a long time ago, and I don't know if she ever read it. I have not read it yet, but one of these days I'll get to it. The Puzzling World of Winston Breen by Eric Berlin, and I believe this is the first in a series. Here's one I've read. This is the first Penderwick's book, A Summer Tale of 4 Sisters, 2 Rabbits, and a Very Interesting Boy by Jean Birdsall. In fact, currently I am listening to the third Penderwick's book right now in my car, called The Penderwicks at Point Muette. This was one of our Sunshine State books a couple of years ago. It's called The Raft by S.A. Bodine. Here's one I just got fairly recently at a book sale. It's Kaminar by Skyla Brown, and it looks very interesting. According to the back, it takes place in the mountains of Guatemala. Here's a copy of The Secret Garden. I didn't remember having this. My mother may have given this to one of my daughters at some point. I have read this a long time ago. I would love to reread it. I think it's a wonderful story. This one might be considered more of a YA book. This is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I love this book. It is so good. Oh, here's another one I love, called The Chocolate Touch by Patrick Skeen Catling. It is about a boy who, instead of the Midas touch, he has the chocolate touch. Everything he touches turns to chocolate. So you can imagine what trouble ensues. I picked up this book by Vera and Bill Cleaver called The Kissimmee Kid because I love their book called Where the Lilies Bloom, and I have not read anything else by them. I don't know anything about it, but since I live not that far from Kissimmee, Florida, I thought it might be interesting to take a look at the book. And then another older book by the same authors, I Would Rather Be a Turnip. This one I've had since elementary school, and I finally read it, I think, last year. It's Maddie Doolin by Catherine Cookson. I am a huge fan of Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim, and I did not realize until recently that there are a couple of sequels that I guess are written by a family member of the original author. I think this is the third book, and I don't have the second one. This one's called R.T. Margaret and the Rats of Nim by Jane Leslie Conley. And here's one I may not hang on to. It's the Artemis Fowl Files by Johan Colfer. But I read the first Artemis Fowl, and so far I have not been really excited to pick up the next one. I wasn't that big of a fan of it, but I happened across this book at some point somewhere, and I just thought I would go ahead and hang on to it until I decide if I'm going to continue with the series. All right, so we're going to do one more stack. The stack in the back will take us through E. I have 3 books in the Face on the Milk Carton series by Carolyn B. Cooney. The first book, Face on the Milk Carton, Whatever Happened to Janie, and What Janie Found. Katie bought this book, and I don't think she ever ended up reading it, and I thought it looked interesting enough that I would give it a second look. It's called Lion Boy by, is it Zizu Corder? Now we're coming to one of my favorite authors, Sharon Creech. And this is my favorite book by Sharon Creech. I love this one. It's called Ruby Holler. And then 2 books that I just read for middle grade May reads and Book a Day in May. Love That Dog. This was actually a reread. I had read this a few years ago, but I had not ever read Hate That Cat. and I actually just read this today. So you're wondering, why is it on the shelf? Well, because I wanted to give you an accurate depiction of the books that live on this shelf, and so I had to put them away properly before I filmed this video. And then one I have not read is Chasing Redbird. Of books from a series that I want to get back to. People of Sparks by Jean Duprow is book 2 in the City of Ember series. I have listened to this one on audio. Don't have the third book, but the fourth one is The Diamond of Darkhold. Here's a Newbery Honor book that I haven't read, The Family Under the Bridge by Natalie Savage Carlson. This one I'm not sure if it's a YA or a middle grade. I just got this fairly recently at a book sale. It's called Invisible Threads by Annie and Maria Dalton. This is The Never-Ending Story by Michael Endy. I haven't read this, but I did really enjoy the movie. My mother-in-law gave this book to Katie, and she never read it. This is I would kind of call this a Christian Nancy Drew. It's it's part of the Elizabeth Bryan mystery series, The Secret in the Old Book by Vicki Berger Irwin. I read it, and I really enjoyed it. And then I have 2 books from this series by Edward Eager. The first one is Half Magic, and I think this is a little farther down the series, Magic or Not. Okay, so everything's put back where it belongs, and that's all I have for this video. I hope you're having a great day, read a good book, and God bless you.